Welcome to the second video of Adapting to Changing Environments. In this video, we will discuss returning home after your 4 months in the United States and experiences that you might have with re-entry. We'll discuss what reverse culture shock is, strategies for adapting well to returning home, and how to stay connected and supported on CSP. For many of you, after reflecting on your CSP experience, you may feel like you are returning home as someone different than the person you were when you arrived in the US. You may have gone through great challenges and changes here in the US that make you feel very different from who you were in August. Or you may just feel a shift in some of your skills or perspectives since you have been here. Either way, you are inevitably a bit changed from your experience of leaving your own country for 4 months and experiencing a completely new environment in your host community. At the same time, you might have been quite homesick while here, missing your family, friends, sights, sounds, smells, and foods of home. We hold all of this within us simultaneously, enjoying the excitement of where we are and experiencing the US while still missing home and feeling the excitement for returning. We also may not realize what exactly in us has changed until we do return home, and until we're back in what we thought was familiar, but notice the changes in ourselves. So back in August, we discussed culture shock and strategies for coping when you came to the United States. Now that you're returning home, it is possible that you might experience reverse culture shock. Reverse culture shock is experiencing difficulty adjusting after an extended period away from where you consider home. It is the difficulties that may come when needing to readjust to the cultural differences and norms of your home after spending time in a different culture and environment. This can be shocking because what was once familiar now feels very unfamiliar. This can be a very unsettling and upsetting feeling. The cultural adjustment re-entry cycle that you'll see on the screen in a moment shows stages of emotions and thoughts that you may experience upon returning. You can find a copy of this graph in the resources section on the CLI. The stages represented on this graph may occur over the course of days, weeks, months, or even years. This is a process, and it will be different for every single one of you. Even fellows from the same country may experience this very differently. It's also possible to move back and forth between stages and to experience each stage multiple times. The first stage you might experience upon returning home is initial excitement. You can do, eat, smell, see all the things that you have missed. The second stage, which is the judgmental stage, is when you begin to compare things in your home country with your experiences and observations in the US. You might begin to view certain practices, customs, and attitudes differently based on comparison with the US or your peers' home countries. That's the second stage. And the third stage of this graph is the realization stage. So this is when you notice significant changes at home and in oneself. So in this stage, you continue to identify ways that you might have changed during the program, but you might also find that those changes are not recognized or appreciated by those around you at home. Friends and family may not be able to identify with these new changes in you. This might lead to frustration or reverse culture shock, which we'll discuss a bit more in a moment, which represents the bottom of the process and may set in when there is inconsistency between the expectations and reality of returning home. Finally, readaptation occurs when individuals, so when you find methods for reconciling your program experience and the changes that have occurred with your current context. In this stage, life will start to seem a little bit more normal again, and you will probably fall back into old routines, but you might not be exactly the same as how you were before you left. You have most likely developed new attitudes, beliefs, habits, as well as personal and professional goals, and you will see things differently now in this readaptation stage. The important thing is to try and incorporate the positive aspects of your international experience while abroad for the positive aspects of your home life. So, how do you know that you are experiencing reverse culture shock? Generally, aspects of reverse culture shock may include the following: difficulty articulating your experience, reverse homesickness, so missing your U.S. home community, changed relationships, feelings of alienation that you might not feel like you fully fit in anymore or belong to your home community as much as before, the inability to apply new knowledge and skills, so feeling a bit stuck in how to adapt your new knowledge and skills to your home context, fear of losing the experience, so the fear of feeling like your U.S. experience is quite distant from you now, and critical negative views of your own culture, as well as boredom, so kind of missing the U.S. experience and craving that type of excitement you felt with the uncertainty of when you were here and all the new elements of your experience. So reverse culture shock may manifest itself in very different ways. Some of you have experienced this before, and it can be very gradual or it can happen suddenly. You might feel a bit sad or have the blues, or you might have feel very alienated, even extreme frustration. It might even manifest itself in anger. You might start to feel like a foreigner in your own country, a bit judgmental to your environment around you, or irritated with how other people are doing things. This is something that happens to some fellows when they return home. Again, many of you have had experiences abroad and might have had the experience of reverse culture shock before. So let's think back to this. Now that you know a bit more about reverse culture shock, pause the video and reflect on what you might experience differently when returning home. What may be difficult for you to readjust to? What cultural norms were different for you in the United States that may present challenges for you when you return home? Have you experienced reverse culture shock before, and how have you handled that? Pause the video now and reflect on these questions for a few minutes. When you're done reflecting, restart the video. So welcome back. We hope that you reflected on your experience of reverse culture shock before in your life and how you handled that, or thinking about what might happen when you return home as far as readapting to your environment. So experiencing some forms of reverse culture shock is very normal for people who spend time away from home and very common for CSP fellows or exchange participants like you all. So let's discuss some strategies for how to handle this. First, it's really important that you talk with people who understand your situation. You have almost 400 CSP alumni who have gone through this exact re-entry experience over the past 7 years. You also have 92 other CSP leaders in this cohort who will be going through this at the exact same time as you. Reach out to them. Reach out to the people in your country. Reach out to the CSP fellows in your region. Reach out to your PAL groups or other relationships you've made with other fellows. Reach out to your alumni mentor. There's so many people who can support you and understand what you're going through. Keeping it all to yourself can lead to the most stress and difficulty in readjusting. So we really encourage you to reach out, tell people how you're feeling, share your challenges, and most likely they're experiencing or have experiencing something very similar to you. You have this big CSP family, so we hope that you really connect with them once you return home. Next, tell others about your experience who were not part of the CSP cohort. We'll cover this a bit further in the next video. Prepare to discuss your experience in small chunks of time. Focus on a few bullet points that stood out the most. So when you go back home, you might want to tell everyone everything all the time about your U.S. experience. But take it slowly and discuss it in small bits of time with some different stories. And to do so, you can use pictures, some music, food, and books that make these stories a bit more tangible. You can even try cooking a new dish you learned in the program to bring those people in your home community into your experience. You'll also want to tailor your stories to the audience and keeping them brief. So for example, you might want to share something different with your brother or sister than you would with your supervisor at work. Next, acknowledge that your friends and family at home also had experiences during your time away. Be sure to ask about their lives. So even though you all have gone through so much in the past 4 months, so have the people back at home. And it's important to recognize and to listen to them and their stories of the past 4 months as well. And finally, it's very important to be patient. It takes time to re-enter and readapt to your home life and your home community. So we really hope that you do have patience with yourself as you're going through all of this. So culture shock can be made worse if you feel like those in your own community don't understand or if you feel very separated. So we really do recommend taking the time to share your experience with them, stay connected to the CSP network, and we will talk about that a lot in the next module. So through it all, just remember to keep reflecting. As you know, we love doing this on CSP, but keep reflecting on how you're feeling and why you're feeling these ways to better understand yourself as you're moving through the reentry process. So returning back home inevitably will present some challenges, as all of life does, along with all the joy and comfort you'll feel. It's impossible to know how you have changed in these past few months until you really do return home. We hope this module helped you prepare for this and remember that there are so many resources, so many people, including your CSP family, who are here to support you along the way. Next, watch some alumni videos sharing their experience returning home. Thank you.